People are setting the wrong goals.
Yep.
People don't have the right mindset going into New Year's, not because they don't have the drive, not because they don't have the effort. It's because they just simply aren't setting goals that are achievable and attainable.
I think for other areas of life, it's actually good to go with the mentality of like, all right, I'm gonna try this and I don't give a shit if I fail.
Water Buffalo TM is back with another Buff Talk.
3, 2, 1. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Old School Matt here. We're back with another Buff Talk, joined by Chris Vidal, the one and only Lapu Lifts. Today, we're going to be doing a podcast on New Year's and New Year's resolutions. So without further ado, welcome on, Chris. How you been? How's the holidays been? How's everything going?
I've been really good, man. How have you been?
It's been pretty good. Super excited for the new year. I'm sure you're excited as well. Why don't you share with us some of the New Year's stuff you got going on for yourself? Any goals you got in plan in mind?
So for me personally, New Year's, looking back at the year, I'm definitely reflecting and seeing improvements I could have made, wasted energy, stuff like that. A very specific thing I can kind of share with viewers is that I didn't manage my stress very well last year. I took on a lot, and then I thought, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can go work at this place for 5 hours, and then go try to train people here at this place for another 5 hours, and I'll do that like 5-6 days, and you know what I mean? Like, I definitely overloaded myself, and I pushed my limits. So now I can kind of understand what I can do and not do, and how I can function.
Sure. I think New Year's resolution for myself is something really similar to that. There's a couple different fields I want to get into, and I think the most important thing that I will try to do in this New Year's is also learn how to manage stress well too. Because as you get older, I found that life obviously gets a lot more stressful and shit, and things get to a point to where it can actually hinder you from performance. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on and talk about on this podcast with you is just like, what are your plans for like stress management? Because a lot of people have big goals for like weight loss and like make more money and stuff, which is great. But a lot of people don't really focus on like the smaller things. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people can learn how to do, and a lot of people can benefit from doing as well.
I think a big thing for me is definitely going to be praying and meditation, like actually having times where you're intentionally taking your brain and you're taking your brain to a different state. So that way it's just chill out, because I think a lot of us, we deal with stress, and I think this is a fact. If you want to get paid a lot of money every year, or let's say every month, generally speaking, a job will have more stress or be more complicated and whatnot the more money you make. They say you get paid depending on how complex of the problems you solve. I think Elon Musk said that. So learning how to manage stress is super important, because if, let's say, we want to get better, we want to be better professionals. For you, I don't know exactly what the big head honcho goal is, but wherever all of us want to get to a different and better career, it's going to be more stressful.
100%. I think something that I was focusing on this year is kind of like what you said, is just taking on a lot of different tasks, but not really focusing on how to do so in a way that's effective. Kind of just like throwing my energy towards a lot of different things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you get a lot of food on your plate, the plate can get messy real quick.
Yep,
and
that's so true.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we were saying, to implement a lot of new things in your life, it's actually a really good thing to be, they call it like a Renaissance man or a jack of all trades. But what becomes problematic is when you're not able to focus on a specific task when you're doing so. And even if it's only for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, like let's just say reading. If you're reading, for example, for 10 minutes before you go to bed, but 3 or 4 of those 10 minutes is, you're like answering text messages, or you're like changing the song or some shit, it can really throw you off balance. And what I've tried to learn on this later half of 2021 has been how to try to set my focus on a task, even if it's very small. Like even if it's like a 10 or 15 minute type of thing, trying to like really hone in on the complexity of being focused. And that's something we were talking about with you earlier, because you have ADHD. Yep. And that's something that you suffer with on a physiological level. But I think something that's helped me a lot in that aspect, and I'm planning on bringing in 2021, is like no matter how big or small the task is like just really focusing my energy for that time being. Like even if I have to cut the time down by, let's say, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, like if I want to read for 30 minutes, but I know in my mind that it's not going to happen, I'd rather do 10 minutes of like really, really intense focus than try to do 30 or 45 minutes of something and really only get 20 minutes of focus and the 20 minutes out of it.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. What are some things that you struggle focusing on in 2021?
So with the stress management, and let's say you're stressed and your cortisol levels are up, dialing down becomes harder because your body's kind of figuring out like, all right, are we safe or not at all times, right? If you're overstressed, I think the first thing you got to do is just calm down. But if we're talking about, let's say, focus, a very small way of doing this can be if you're eating a meal, turn off your phone. And this is actually a yoga instructor taught me this, and just don't look at anything, no news, no sounds, nothing. Like try to make it as quiet as possible and just sit there and eat and chew your food and enjoy it. Yeah. And that has crazy effects. I do that sometimes and like I'm like, wow.
Yeah, same thing with driving for me too, like just being on the phone when you're driving. I think the biggest distraction obviously for everybody is the phone and like social media and just like watching different things. And I saw a video the other day where it talks about something called escapism. I don't know if you ever heard of that before. Like when you try to use like even like comic books, movies and stuff like that, when we get, you know, into certain things that don't really have any real value in the real world, we try to escape from our current lives. And that's something that I feel like I need to kind of stray away from a little bit and kind of just focus on being in the life that I'm living now. Because if you're not, a lot of times that can take away from a lot of your focus. And we could just use like, let's just say the new Spider-Man movie, for example, which is great. But if you're going above and beyond and taking too much time out of your day to focus on things that aren't really based in the real world, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice, not only because you're wasting your time, but you're also wasting your focus, you know?
You're wasting your energy, basically. I mean, energy and days and time that you're not going to get back.
Exactly. And what I found too has been really helpful in staying focused on certain tasks is really dedicating and blocking time out for those tasks, not just sitting down without a plan. It's something that I've, you know, it's really hard to like implement a plan when you have one. That's what I found. But if you really stick to a plan on what you're trying to do, let's just say studying, for example, like it really works. You have to really stick to it, because if you don't, you get really distracted really easily. And that's the biggest killer of like trying to do too many things at once, is just distractions. Because we can all do a bunch of things. It's not difficult. I mean, it's difficult, but it's not impossible, right?
Yeah.
So like having a lot of things on your plate is definitely doable for most people. But you know, distracting yourself is what's going to take those things and really take your focus out of them. So instead of learning everything at like an intermediate level, your focus is taking you to only learning those things at like a beginner level, and you don't really make much progress, right?
Yeah, and you're not, let's say, retaining a lot of information. If you're trying to learn, I mean, for the most part, let's say we're digesting information, we're trying to learn. But if you got little young Dolph blaring in your ears, and you're trying to read about this whatever topic that you need to know about, you're gonna be hell distracted, you know?
100%. Let's move forward and talk about some of our physical goals in 2022. You have anything you want to share with anybody out there about your physical goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish in the gym, physique wise, strength wise?
So strength wise, I achieved my goal, 3 plate squat. So now it's time to try to get 4. I don't think I'm gonna get there in a year, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah.
Another thing for sure is just, I don't know, maybe overall 10-20% more muscle this year.
Sure. I think for the most part, my goals are quite similar to what they were last year. It's just kind of maintaining my current physique and just making little improvements here and there. Because as you know, like as you progress in the gym, the improvements start to get like a little bit smaller. Like you can't really make the crazy gains you make in the first couple of years.
True.
So it's just kind of like sticking to that and making sure that I'm not digressing in any progress. Just make sure I'm progressing, even if it's very small. I don't have any specific strength goals for this year. Something that I want to do this year is I've talked about it briefly before, is like do a marathon. So that's something I wanted to try to get into, some distance and endurance training and whatnot. So that's like the new thing for me. And just making sure I'm staying in great shape and making sure that I'm able to accomplish all my goals in terms of like my diet, making sure I'm hitting the workouts effectively, making sure I'm putting energy towards things that I feel like are going to be important in terms of my not only health in the moment, but health long-term as well. So like staying away from bad things like nicotine or alcohol for the most part.
Same for me, man.
And kind of implementing different things in my diet that'll make life a little bit easier, because like a lot of times I talk about supplements all the time. I talk about vegetables and I talk about foods that are good for you. But sometimes I fail to eat these foods just because of convenience sake or being lazy. So that's something I want to make sure I'm hitting, especially veggies wise, because I talk about vegetables a lot, but there are days where I don't eat vegetables at all. Just because
I think with our physiques, the problem is we really can, for the short term, get away with not eating veggies, but overall our body's going to experience those vitamin deficiencies and whatnot, and
Yeah.
we're going to feel it in our mood.
And also make sure that I'm taking my vitamins on a daily basis, which is not hard. For the most part, I hit those goals, but I really want to hone down in on making sure I'm hitting all those things on a daily basis, because like there are times where I say I don't have time for it, but you know, it's really not that hard to throw a handful of spinach in your food. It's more about being lazy and saying, do you really want to eat this spinach right now, or do you want to eat this broccoli? Sometimes it's better or easier for you just to eat like the chicken and rice or whatever, chicken, salmon, or salmon and rice, or steak, or whatever it might be, potatoes, because the vegetables aren't really enjoyable. But they're really not that bad. It's just like,
I mean, if you cook them right, they're delicious.
But that's the thing, that takes a little bit more effort and
focus.
Yeah,
like we said.
And you get distracted, and for me, it's like pure laziness. Like when I don't eat my spinach with my meal, it's because I'm lazy or I just don't want to eat it, and that's just not having a strong mindset in terms of life and whatnot. And these are really small things. But as you progress in terms of the gym and in terms of diet and whatnot, it's a lot harder to make bigger progress. So it's like learning down how to hone in on the big thing or on the little things in life, which is also important. You know, the devil's in the detail. So you want to make sure you're getting all the stuff in. And, for people out there that are just starting their fitness journey, obviously these aren't things that are like crazy relevant for like a weight loss program or a weight gain program. But for someone like yourself and myself, we've been doing this for quite some time. It's more about refining what we have going on already, you know?
Maybe like trying to set the habit so that way we kind of, all right, bag of spinach, boom.
Yeah.
2 times a day. Just building that habit, you know? And it's hard because you have to start somewhere, and then after basically 30 days after it takes to build a habit, right? So
Yeah. Is that what it is?
yeah, it's about 30 days straight. So basically 30 days telling yourself, and the voice in your side of your head just wants to quit. Like, no, fuck you, we're going.
Gonna do it. Do you have a problem eating vegetables, or do you do a pretty good job?
To be honest, any chance I get and I feel like it's going to taste good, I eat vegetables. But I run into the same problem as yourself. The protein, carbs, this multivitamin, boom, 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 take it. Fruit for me is definitely not a problem. I love fruit.
Yeah. No, I don't really eat fruit too often. I'm not too worried about fruit. I know fruit has a lot of benefits, but I'm really more worried about my spinach, because I used to be like every meal I would have a handful of spinach or like asparagus or broccoli, but spinach is my go-to. I like spinach. Spinach is very nutrient dense. But just, I would say the past 2 years or so, it's just been like, sometimes I'll eat it, sometimes I won't, but I'm trying to make it a habit, like you said, a routine of every meal, even if it's like a small handful or, a little bit sauteed on a plate, it's just making sure I get that down, because over time, like we've been doing this for so long, those are going to be the differences in what makes our physique look better and feel better and function better on a higher level.
And I will say, no matter how amazing our health and fitness, whatnot is, time's going to catch up with us. Yeah. And by the time we're 45, 50, like, we're going to feel it if we don't eat our fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. And another thing, too, is, like, just drinking a lot of water and making sure I'm staying away from, like, artificial sweeteners and whatnot. Not because they're, like, that bad for you. Like I said, like, if you're the first time you're trying to accomplish your New Year's goals and whatnot, like, maybe a diet soda will be good for you, or maybe, like, a bubbly or something might be good for you. But I've relied a lot on flavored waters and whatnot, and I just feel like that's not the best case scenario in terms of your health. I think water's the best.
They've found some studies where they're doing studies right now on diet pop, and maybe it doesn't affect short-term weight loss. It doesn't, but they're finding out more that it kind of messes with your biome, just because instead of having just carbonated whatever syrup and sugar, let's say Coca-Cola, you're having these artificial sweeteners and the acidity of the drink and the carbonation, all that messing up your stomach. So I don't know what the long-term disadvantages of Diet Coke Pop are, but I will say a lot of people in our fitness industry, they religiously consume Diet Pop. Yeah. And like, let's say Dr. Lane Norton, and like they post about it all the time.
Yeah, he's somebody that's a proponent of that stuff. I'm not saying it's bad for you. But
it's probably better that if you didn't drink it at all. Yeah,
it's better that you drink
just water and whatnot, probably better.
And a lot of the times, like, I feel better if I just drink water. Like, when I did that caffeine fast, which I plan to do another one sometime in the middle of the year, is like, when I just drank a little bit more water, ice cold water, I ended up not feeling better in the moment, because you don't get that instant caffeine rush or like that instant rush of like that sweet taste in your mouth. But like a couple minutes later, you feel fine. You feel, you feel a little bit better than you did before. And that's something that like I kind of want to hone in on in 2022 is just making sure I'm drinking enough water, which I do drink a lot of water, but I'm also drinking like, have you had a bubbly before? You know what that is? Yeah, bubbly or like a vitamin water with
0 calorie.
0 calorie and stuff. So I'm trying to stay away from that. That's really my goals for fitness and nutrition wise, is just making sure I'm sticking to my diet, making sure I'm fixing the small little, I guess bad habits. Because like we were talking about earlier, like we've developed a diet and a plan that's pretty like, it's probably 80-85% of the way there, but I'm trying to make it maybe 90% by like just implementing these little things so that I'm a little bit better than I was the year before. And that's something I also wanted to get to eventually too on this podcast, is like setting goals and setting realistic goals.
Realistic goals. Yeah, that's important.
What do you think about like, have you heard of SMART goals before?
SMART. I don't know the acronym by heart.
Specific, measurable, attainable, timely, and reasonable. Wait, fuck.
What's R?
It's I just said this the other day. Specific, measurable, attainable, maybe reasonable. And timely. So timely is like the amount of time.
There has to be a time limit, right? Like you can't just say my goal is to lose 50 pounds.
Yeah.
By when?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think about people that set goals that are too high? And what would be your advice to like kind of hone down? Because I think really ambitious goals are great, but for someone who's starting in a new field, they might be the detriment of that person doing something new. Let's just take weight loss, for example.
I think people need to be realistic and they need patience. A good body, for you to love and enjoy it the way that we do, we do that because we spent years building it, not because we spent 6 months of hard effort and like, I'm looking good. Like, no, it's the 10 years of like, hey, I spent 10 years building this. And you look at yourself with pride in the mirror. So I would say that people just starting this off, be patient. Understand that you should set realistic goals. Let's say you can lose 2 pounds of fat a week, right? That is if you're optimizing everything. Hopefully you should lose 2 pounds a week. Realistically, if you're trying to lose weight, I would say aiming for 1 is probably more realistic.
Sure.
More sustainable, because at the end of the day, the habits that you have determine the way you look. That's the way we look right now. It's a determination of our exercises, but we would be like tubby, kind of skinny or buff fat gorillas if we had horrible diets right now.
Exactly.
So, but that's our habit. So a lot of people need to understand when you're setting these goals, fitness is not just, this is a guy who lifts heavy. No. This is a guy who has a specific set of eating habits and diets and training regimens already in his kind of system in his life, and you need to try to build those over time.
Sure. I think that another thing too that helps with people and like psychologically is like if you set a small goal and you like go above and beyond it, then you feel a little bit better than if you set like a really big goal and you don't reach it, because then you feel like you're a failure. A lot of times, like when I've set big goals in life for a year or 6 months, I haven't reached those goals, and it just kind of, it throws you back a little bit for me. It makes me feel a little bit discouraged. So I'd rather like set a goal that's pretty reasonable, if not easy, but like definitely not hard, more on the easy side than hard, and then you reach it and then you go from there. So like instead of setting one big goal for 2022, setting like a couple small goals throughout the year will help you reach those goals, almost like milestones. Like when you go to karate or whatever, you get a new belt. Instead of, you don't just go from white belt to black belt, you go from white to blue to, so like gradual progression. And it sounds simple in theory, and when we talk about it, it's simple, but in life it's a little bit difficult, because a lot of times people see others that set really big goals and they reach those goals, but they're not on the same path as the other person, or they're not able to put in the same amount of effort or have the same knowledge that person has. So it's harder for them to do so, and if they don't reach the goal, they feel like they're a failure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you set the goal too high, you fail. Now you feel bad, but in reality, you're just causing your own suffering, because you can just be patient and be like, you know what? In 6 months, I probably can't lose those 50 pounds. Like, I probably can't, realistically, if my habits. But maybe I can lose 20 in 6 months, right? And if you lose 40, but your goal was 20.
Yeah,
Guess what? Now you think of yourself as like Superman, like, oh wow, like I can do this, and you're even more pumped up to start going.
The next time you could be a little bit more ambitious, and it's something to be careful of for people that are getting trained either online or in person. Is like when you get someone that's pitching you like this, fantasy dream about like losing weight, and a lot of times people just end up losing water weight, and they like think that they're getting these crazy results, but in reality they're really not. It's something you want to, because nothing in life is easy. Like you're not going to become Mr. Olympia in 3 months.
Nothing worth it is easy at all, man. And like I said, if you were able to get like our bodies in like 6 months, you wouldn't value it. You just eat donuts for the night. You just eat donuts.
Exactly. I would say like, and the really motivating thing about New Year's is that not that it's like, okay, let's scale back our goals. It's like these small goals and these attainable goals, these are what you want to shoot for, because these are the ones that should excite you. Like the big goal should excite you in long term, and in hindsight you should think, okay, eventually I'm going to get there, but it should excite you that saying like, okay, I'm listening to this podcast, or I'm listening to someone telling me about this, and I can do the 20 pounds in 5 or 6 months, or I can do the 30 pounds or whatever it is. But if I have this goal of like, I really want to get down 100 pounds, like it's most likely not going to happen in those 6 months.
No, it's not.
But if you get the small goal and you reach it, that's exciting because you reach your goal. For me, it's a lot better for you to, like I said, overshoot on your goal. And then there you go. You've already accomplished what you wanted, or you've already accomplished what you're okay with. And now you've gone above and beyond than like setting a huge goal. And then like, not only do you probably not reach it, not trying to be a pessimistic person, but it also makes you feel like you're like kind of like a failure.
And the problem with these goals is that these are all directly tied to your body and the way your body looks. And we all live inside our body for our souls. So when we like are talking about goals of our body and we don't reach them, it negatively affects our self-esteem.
For sure.
But I think for other areas of life, it's actually good to go with the mentality of like, all right, I'm gonna try this and I don't give a shit if I fail. But for this specifically, because it involves your body and the way you look and your self-esteem, it's a good idea to use the strategy we're talking about. We're setting these goals which are realistic and that you can overshoot on.
Yeah.
And surprise yourself.
Scale back.
Yeah. And then your next goal, maybe you can be like, all right, I got to be a little bit.
Exactly. If you break up a big goal into like different increments throughout the year, you'll reach it eventually. But if you try to shoot for the stars right away, you're probably going to fall real quick.
That's what's going to happen to most people. New Year's without some guidance,
I think it's
man.
like 90% of people
99 probably.
Yeah, or something close to that. I'm sure don't reach their New Year's goals. And this shouldn't discourage people. It's just people are setting the wrong goals. Yep. People don't have the right mindset going into New Year's. And I've always been kind of weary of the whole New Year's resolution stuff. And I've kind of always thought of it as bullshit, but it is a good way to motivate people to do better. And I've realized that like people can actually can do these things. Like it's refreshing to think, okay, it's a new year. I have the whole year ahead of me. I have this whole plan, this whole schedule to do things. It's exciting, but people fail not because they don't have the drive, not because they don't have the effort. It's because they just simply aren't setting goals that are achievable and attainable. Like the goals that we've set out aren't like life-changing things, which I don't think that it's fair for me to say that you shouldn't make life-changing goals. That's a great thing. You should, but you should think about like the factors that go into achieving goals. So like if you want to learn, let's just say something technical, like you want to go to trade school or something, like you're probably going to have to take more than a year to get specific certification or specific job or specific thing if you're starting fresh, physique wise too, strength wise. Like it takes time to build goals, and it shouldn't just be a yearly basis. It should be more of like a lifestyle change rather than a goal in and of itself. Like a lifestyle change would say, you know what, I'm going to start exercising and going to the gym at least 3 times a week, and I'm going to do so for the entire year. I'm going to do so for the rest of my life or whatever it might be, rather than just saying, like you said, just solely physique driven. Like I want to lose 100 pounds and have abs. Like those aren't goals that are really going to help you achieve them.
Well, I think those goals are all focused on how other people perceive you, because in a sense it's like, oh, my goal is to lose this pounds of weight. It's to look this certain way. It's to do this and that. But if you learn how to find the motivation from within, like I want to become healthier, I'm going to work out 3 times a week. I want to have a good physique. I've always been thinking about it. I'm going to do it for me, right? Instead of thinking like, oh, I have to lose this weight, and like I'm not doing well in dating, this and that. That can be good motivation at the start. But here's the thing. And I hate to say this. Anyone can be interested in the gym for a year or a few years, and then I see them like flies drop out, man. It's sad for me, and it breaks my heart every time. But at the end of the day, when you're just trying to chase this extrinsic goal and you're not actually just going for you, it's going to become a problem later.
We have to change the whole gym culture to instead of like a thing we do, it's like a thing that's implemented in our schedule already. Like with the same way we brush teeth, the same way we take a shower. Like if you really want to make the change and be a healthier person and be physically fit and have a physique that you're able to say you're impressed by, it's less about saying, I'm going to add the gym to my routine. It's more about how am I going to like implement it into my life. Just as if you were to go take a shower when you go to bed, or before you go to bed, just if you when you get up and you brush your teeth, just like if you're going to have lunch at 12, noon, the gym has to in some way be a part of that lifestyle. And that doesn't start with going to the gym for 2.5 hours and killing yourself every day starting New Year's. It starts with small walks. It starts with, implementing, maybe if you're an intermediate level person, trying cardio for the first time, because a lot of people don't do cardio, or trying new exercises for the first time. It's not, let me take this crazy supplement, or let me do this crazy, diet, keto for, 3 months and I'm going to get shredded. It's more about implementing smaller changes in your life to make it kind of mesh with what you got going on already, Like some people go home and play video games after work every day, which is not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, but it's part of their routine. Some people like to have a coffee in the morning. It's part of their routine.
It's the routine. Yeah.
So going to the gym needs to be implemented in your routine in some manner.
And it feels a lot nicer when every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
I was checking the time.
Friday, I work out, and it's, as a trainer, it breaks my heart. But this is one of the only times in my life where it's kind of not planned, because if someone wants to have a session and like I plan to work out during that time, I'm doing the session, and going back to this, it truly feels fulfilling if you work out 3 times a week consistently. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not even doing the craziest stuff. You go in for 4 exercises or 5, that person's going to feel so good.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out to somebody like Chris, like myself, or anybody. It doesn't have to be the gym. It could be anything that's already experienced it. Because that's another thing when it comes to reaching goals, is like you should try to talk to people that have already achieved what you want to achieve. And there's so many people out there in terms of fitness and how to make money and how to, get a certain degree or how to do this or that. And like, there's so many people, probably 5 to 10 people in like your community that are able to give you some advice, because they'll be able to tell you, okay, don't do this, don't try this. This is not going to work, or this will work really well. You should try implementing this in your diet or this in your workout routine. So when you talk to people about like what they've done before, it's kind of like taking data in the past. When you look at, like, let's just say sports teams, for example, what's their strategy to win? How have they done it before? You can't implement the same exact strategy for yourself, but you could take bits and pieces and say, this is good. I like this. I don't like this. I like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can get far, and if you're just trying to get started, it's not a bad idea just to go to the gym, sign up, whatever. But if you've tried for a little bit, let's say a couple months, 6 months to a year, and you don't really feel like you know what you're doing and you're not really getting the results you want, it's time to get professional help. Because at the end of the day, you're wasting your time. And working out is not something easily learned, because there's so many, depending on the movement, there's so many little form tweaks that we have to make as trainers and whatnot. You're not going to know naturally how to squat. There's no way. There's
especially if you've been in a state to where your body's not primed to do movements. Like if you're an athlete and you've done physical activity in your life, it's probably a little easier for you. But like for the most sedentary people,
but that's the problem, right? Those athletes, they've already had coaching, and that's all PT is. It's just coaching.
Yeah. But continue on with the podcast. I wanted to talk about a couple different things, maybe some past goals we've achieved before. One of my goals for 2021 was to obviously finish my degree, which was a great achievement.
Congrats, you made it.
I'm sure that was one of your goals too, and because you graduated this past year, didn't you?
Last year.
Oh, you 2020?
Last summer.
Well, that's 2020 or 2021?
2020.
Oh, okay. Cool. I didn't know that. I forgot. The year's been passing by too quick. Did you have any other goals this year that you've reached? You said you got 315 squat.
Well, I mean, a big thing for me was I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. In like, let's say January, I set out a goal, said, hey, I want to become a personal trainer and I want to try to make that a career.
Yeah.
and I fucking did it. So
yeah, it's also, you got your NASM CPT certification this year. And like I was saying earlier, like you don't have to reach any crazy milestones in 2022, but it's just learning, especially if you're around our age, which is like mid to early 20s, is like just like building. Now is the time to build.
Let me share something.
Sure.
I set a realistic goal for myself though, because I didn't tell myself, hey, by this timeline, I'm going to be a PT and making $100 grand a year, or even let's say we can go lower and lower and lower. But the point is, I did my research and I kind of looked at the lives of people who had taken the path before me, just like we were talking about before. And I set very realistic expectations of what to expect and what to happen in the next few years.
Yeah.
And that can help anyone in any different field for what you're trying to do. Just researching past experiences of people who achieve what you want to achieve. That's way more useful than you just being like, I know it. If I work hard, I'll make it happen.
Yeah. And when you work hard, it's working hard. A year is nothing. We live for 80, 90 years. A year is a very small percentage of your life. So even if you spend this entire year, like if you're younger than us, and let's say you're 19, 18 years old, and you just want to spend the whole next year just learning about, diet, supplementation, training, for example, let's just use that. It might take you a year or 2 years to really get to the level to where you feel like, okay, now I want to make the next steps and I want to make this career. I want to make this happen, especially when it comes to like money too. Like if you have a goal to set out to like make crazy money in 2021 or 2022, and you've never really made good money in the past. Not saying it's not possible. Of course it's possible. Anything's possible, but it's more likely, and it's probably better for you to start small and build that foundation. And also if later in life, like just because you're in your 30s or 40s doesn't mean that it's too late to start and you need to like rush into any goals. Like we all have to start from different areas in life, and it's not about where you get or how you get there in a small amount of time. It's the path that goes there. And it's everyone's journey is different. Something that might take someone 1 year might take someone 5 years, but it's not a competition of who can get there first in life.
I think a lot of it's not even a competition versus other people.
It's
at least not until you get past a certain level. And I don't even think I'm past that. You're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
And the problem is, let's say it takes different people, different timelines. You don't know what happened to one person. I mean, let's say their mom died at a weird time, or abuse or stuff like that. But let's just throw it to the side for a second. When you're trying to become fit, and let's say a guy's like 300 pounds and he's overweight, obviously, he got to that point, right? He's not only fighting his like a bad like diet and not knowing how to work out, and let's say he's trying to navigate that and figure that out. He's fighting the last decade at least of his bad habits.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is? Like the beat a habit in your brain as ingrained and related to, let's say, food,
or let's say porn, for example.
Yep.
Like
sex and food, man.
A lot of guys that have watched our other podcasts on like masturbation and watching pornography have been doing it for like 10 or 15 years. It's very unlikely that it's going to stop cold turkey in the year that you want it to stop. Like for me, I remember when I stopped watching porn, I stopped masturbating and stuff like that. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a progression of like slowly realizing and starting to figure out like what I was doing. And then eventually there comes a time to where it is like a all or nothing type of thing. But if you're just starting to realize like issues in your life, smoking, doing drugs, alcohol, masturbation, pornography, being overweight, being out of shape, having, crazy amounts of debt, or feeling like you're behind in certain things in school wise or anything where you're underperforming, most likely it's a years, like you said, that's been kind of accumulating, and it's going to take more than 1 year to really fight all the demons that you've built up in the past.
But you're way more likely to achieve it if it's like slow. So if we're talking about porn, let's just say you're watching it twice a day, right? Yeah. Cool. First thing, only once.
Yeah, sure.
And then do a couple weeks like that. And then as you slowly get more comfortable with the absence of that said thing, get closer and closer to the edge, and then you can cut cold turkey. But if you take someone and they masturbate 3 times a day normally, and you tell them, stop completely cold turkey, what's going to happen to them? They're going to be, if they don't masturbate, they're going to be running around the house, and they're going to have boners at work and stuff, you know?
They're going to relapse. A lot of times people relapse, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's the accumulation of years and years of, or even in some instances, months and months. It doesn't have to be years. It could be months. I think the best thing to kind of put out there for people is like the amount of time you've put in bad habits, you can at the very minimum expect you to fully overcome those habits in half the amount of time. So if you've been like hardcore porn for 10, 15 years, and I hate to say this, it might take you 3-5 years to really get over it.
Really stop it. Yeah.
Forever.
Probably.
You know? Exactly. And drugs are the same thing. Debt is the same thing.
And the drug, depending on how strong it is, if we're talking, let's say opioids, pain relievers, you quite literally cannot just stop it cold turkey.
Yeah.
You will experience problems.
Exactly.
You like doctors are literally like, no. You have to wean off it.
Yeah, wean off. It's a great tool for people that are trying to start their New Year's resolution. Instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna quit porn forever. I'm gonna, not do this or insert your whatever thing you're doing that's harmful for your life. A lot of times if you cut cold turkey, like you were saying, it's gonna just cause you to relapse and you're not really gonna learn anything. I would much rather someone tell me, and I've had people talk to me about the no-fap stuff before, like, hey bro, I got off porn for like 3 months, but I started watching it again. So what do? You take what you learned in those 3 months and you reapply it and you start over again. And this time you take the stuff that might have made you relapse and you try to take that out. So like if you were not watching porn, but you're still jerking off to like, let's just say Instagram or like pictures of chicks on Instagram.
Or your imagination.
Or whatever, then try to stop the porn, but try to stop masturbating maybe half the amount of time to the other stuff you were doing. And then there you go. You're off of it again, relapse.
But you know what? If we're at this point, right, and the guy already has kind of went from porn to now his mental faculties, he's already having a healthier brain.
Yeah, exactly. You're already halfway there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People, you don't have to restart. So like if you lose weight and you're like down, let's just say you're down 50 pounds. Let's say you achieve the 50-pound goal, but then you balloon back up another 30 pounds. You're not back to the 50. Now you're only 30. So you've made progress, which is great. Now don't let it regress into the point to where it goes above and beyond. And that's the thing some people, and we're tying it back into what we were talking about earlier, when people get discouraged, they think that, oh, I can never do this. So not only do they go back,
no point,
they even go way, way back to like even worse than where they were before. So like that's another thing is like, if you do go big and you achieve some of your goal, don't let it discourage you. On the flip side of what we're saying, if you're not going to follow what we're talking about, like setting a system up, if you decide to go all out and go hard, try to have damage control in the sense of like, okay, you've gotten to a certain point. Now don't let yourself go back. You might not be able to progress any much further for said time, but let yourself stay there and kind of chill out and learn how to kind of hold back the bad habits. But before we close out the podcast, I wanted to just lay out some different New Year's goals for people out there that we think might be positive, might be beneficial towards them. Like we've kind of listed some out. I'll list a couple, and then if you want to list a couple too. Sure. I think for the majority of people that watch this podcast, there's mostly like men and teens and guys our age, maybe a little bit older. I would say definitely like sticking to a diet and a fitness routine that's not only going to make you look better, but for your life, like health wise. Making sure you're implementing good whole foods, staying away from processed foods is a great goal to do. That's a simple thing you can cut out. Is like maybe you don't have to have the craziest, a Mr. Olympia diet for 2022, but maybe just cutting out foods like chips or candy or Coca-Cola or,
cutting out snacks that don't really serve you any benefit.
Exactly. That's a goal in and of itself. That's an amazing goal. If you can cut out processed food, and then maybe next year revisit, fixing your diet to being really structured. I think processed food is like half of the battle for most people. Another thing I would say is like, if you're a big alcohol drinker or a big drug user, cut away from the alcohol or the drugs, systematically. Like we said, like if you're an alcoholic, you probably need to find some help. But if you're somebody that's drinking on the weekends, like maybe cut it back to instead of going out and drinking 3 days out of the week, doing a 2 or 1 day out of the week.
Or one, yeah.
And having a reward system so that you're rewarding yourself for let's just say an achievement rather than just mindlessly drinking or mindlessly doing drugs. And then the last one I would say too is staying away from pornography, staying away from sexually provoking acts online, not just pornography, but like, Instagram model stuff, OnlyFans, like any of that stuff?
I'm gonna say something controversial, man. You know, men, if you're listening to this, if you're following a girl on Instagram and she does not follow you back, and you're just staring at her ass all day, and this is not for marketing, you need to unfollow that girl, bro. Like you're looking at softcore porn all day.
Exactly.
No point.
Exactly, and that's the last thing I'll say. I'll let you kind of take over, see if you want to add anything else to it. But I would say like, don't trick yourself with goals too. Like if you're saying I'm going to get off porn, and then you're reverting to, well, I'm going to get off porn, but there's twerk videos on YouTube, or there's like OnlyFans that they don't show full nudity. You know, that's progress, but you're also cheating yourself out of.
I'm not going to smoke weed, but let me eat this edible.
Yeah, exactly. So don't what's it called? Don't like substitute your bad habits for other things. Like I'm not going to do coke this year, but I'm going to do fentanyl or something. You know, something crazy.
I'm going to go to Adderall now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
that's a common thing. A lot of people say that they'll do like oh I'm gonna do a really good weight loss transformation, but then they jump on like SARMs or like fucking steroids or some shit. Like
that breaks my heart.
Didn't really fix the problem there. Yeah, but what would you say? Some goals you'd set out for some people.
So what I'd recommend, if you're gonna drink and you like drinking, I will say this as a trainer. The number one thing I've noticed which helps people gain and lose weight in the ways they want is by not drinking alcohol. If you have alcohol a lot, like you're having 10, 12 drinks a week, I'm sorry, brother, but you're really shooting yourself in the foot, because that drug specifically messes with your digestion, with your metabolism. So what I recommend to people, and this is something I actually practice myself, I don't even really hit 3 to 4 drinks a week, but that's my max. Try to stick to 3 to 4 drinks a week, you know? Okay. Like if that's what you're going to want to do, because if you keep below that range, you'll still be hitting your goals. Other than the unfollow thing I said, I would say a really good goal is really making sure that you're treated the way you want to be treated next year. I see a lot of people in compromising situations, and they don't really understand, you know, people don't want to negotiate. That's what I want to say. So I think a big tip I'd want to share that's on the top of my head is negotiate for the things you want in your life and the relationships you want from people, and make sure that you're getting your cut.
Sure. It's a great goal. What about knowledge-based? You read from time to time?
I love reading.
Yeah, so like that's another thing that popped up in my brain is like, as you guys see on the videos, like there's books everywhere in here. I have not read all the books in here, but I'm planning on trying to get closer and closer to finishing off all the books that I have. But just knowledge in general, and that's a really general goal. So like I don't mean to be too high level, but like whatever you're interested in doing, just like picking up literature, taking some of your Christmas money, if you got some, to buy a course from somebody.
That's true too.
You know, maybe someone who's doing photography and you want to be a photographer, or someone who's, you know, trading stocks or something and you want to learn how to trade stocks. Anything, like use other people's knowledge. Any knowledge you gain is going to be useful knowledge, as long as you're not wasting your money on things that are like outdated and stuff like that. But a lot of different books, and especially like self-help books and books about growing wealth and growing as an individual, they're timeless. So you can pick up a book from the 80s or 90s or 2000s, and a lot of the stuff you can learn. And even if it is outdated, the good thing about books and knowledge is that it shows, you know, history kind of repeats itself. So it might not be, you know, super practical or super applicable towards what you want to do, but it gives you the history and the base of what's happened before. So you can learn from that as well.
I think a lot of books are still useful today, even in self-help. I mean, I think there's some dark horses that could pop up, but let's say Think and Grow Rich, or How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you guys haven't read those books, you guys need to. I mean, I'm a big advocate of how to win friends and influence people. But I would say another good goal is, I think you mentioned it earlier too, is trying to read a new book once a month. I think that is a very attainable goal, because most books you'll read are probably 200 to 500 pages.
And that's something that I try to do this year. And that's one of the goals I failed at. I was real good in the beginning of the year, and I fell off towards the end. I was going to try to read 15 books this year. I think I read like 8 or 9. And, you know, and that's the last thing I want to hit on this podcast is like, you're going to fail at probably a lot of your goals. If you have a lot, you'll probably fail. Not because you didn't structure it right, not because, you know, you didn't. If you're doing everything right, even if you're doing everything we're saying in this podcast and more, if there's other tactics that you want to share, you're still going to fail. And it's not a bad thing to fail. So be ready for it, welcome it, because anytime you put into something that's worth your time, even if you don't achieve the goal, is better than not doing anything. And that's the whole the whole thing out of this podcast, even if you go and you make the craziest goal of like, I want to win a show, and you've never, you're 250 pounds and you've never competed a day in your life, you'll make some progress and you'll learn along the way. Like, even if you fail completely and you go out, you go crazy with what you're doing and you fall off, and you'll learn something from it, hopefully. And
I
that's
think
the thing.
you got to combine the failure and willingness to be like, all right, I'm going to try this. You're going to be optimistic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fail, maybe.
Yeah.
Get excited by that, because you know what? The type of people who get what they want from this life, they're very comfortable failing and do not care when they do. But you just got to have the self-awareness to figure out where you went wrong in your failure, realize that, get up, dust yourself off, and get going again.
And to piggyback off the failures thing, like, get critique from friends.
That
like,
too.
And professionals.
Trustworthy friends.
Exactly. Professionals would be obviously more like, for example, if you want to lose weight and you didn't do it right, go and reach out to someone like Chris. You're like, hey, bro, what did I do wrong? Would probably be the best case scenario. But even your friends or your family will probably tell you the truth.
For sure, family doesn't, and your girlfriend will not pull any punches if you ask them earnestly. But
sure, yeah, and that's the thing. Find someone that's not going to pull a punch. If you're like, I wasn't able to lose this amount of weight, and you go reach out to one of your friends, they're like, bro, because you barely went to the gym, and they're like, you said you were going to go to the gym, let's say 5 days out of the week, you only went 2, and you spent your weekends eating shit food. Sometimes you need to hear that, and sometimes the biggest goal of a New Year's resolution is figuring out where you fail and how you fail. That could be the biggest goal. That could be the biggest thing, and that was something for me in 2020. Was I didn't necessarily have New Year's goals for 2020. This is 2 years ago. But I learned how to fail, and I learned failure was important. I learned about heartbreak. I learned about being in shitty situations. I learned about, the pandemic with staying at home and being like lonely. And I learned a lot of things during that year. And maybe it's your year to fail, unfortunately, but fortunately, like you said, fail. And maybe it's our year to fail. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen this year, but accept the darkness. Be optimistic, set really great goals and structured goals. More than likely you'll reach some of them. You won't, and no matter, like I said earlier, no matter how good your structure and your plan is, you're going to fail at some of your goals.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to achieve every single one. And if you do, then you're truly at the next level in life, and you should be really proud and happy.
But eventually a failure will come to you. Exactly.
And that's the thing, like, the better and better you level up, and the more you do in life, the easier things like this are going to be, and the more ambitious you can be as well. It's all about how you want to focus your energy in terms of life and philosophy and what you do physically. It really takes a lot of time to build, and we're both still young for the most part, but I hope to share knowledge with you guys, anyone either older or younger. And what I've realized is that just because you're at a certain area in your life doesn't mean that you have any more or any less knowledge than somebody else. There are people in my life that have talked to me that I used to look up to. And family and whatnot. I'm sure it's happened to you, friends and stuff, like people that you used to look up to, and you've done your work, you laid down the road work, and now they're talking to you about certain things.
That really surprises me with fitness. I still don't believe it sometimes.
Yeah, you have some people that you used to look up to, and now they reach out to you.
Yeah, and it's insane because I'm like, it just doesn't feel real.
Yeah, no, it happens to me a lot too, and I don't want to kind of put myself or yourself on some pedestal like we're like these gods or anything like that, but be humble in the sense that someone's willing to ask you for help. Be happy that people are going to reach out to you.
It warms my heart, man. I'm like, all right, I try to help them as best as I can.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing in 2022 too. Be a giving person. Be willing to help other people out, just as if you were going to ask a professional for help. If you have the time, or if you have, even a 5-minute conversation with people. There's 5-minute conversations I've had with professionals in certain fields that have changed my total perspective on what I do.
It can just be one phrase or one fact. And
exactly.
You're like, whoa.
You're like, wait, what? That's the way
I've been a dumbass for like 5 years.
Exactly. And, so like I said, some people learn faster, some people learn slower, but just be willing to accept change, be willing to be excited about the new stuff that's going to come. We're all excited. We got a lot of different things planned for the new year, and we're excited to share with everybody. And we hope you guys have a great new year. Anything you want to say to anyone watching this on New Year's?
Last thing I can say for the next year, take a look at who your top 5 friends are. And if they're not where they're supposed to be, cut them.
Yeah, and there's tons of things that we can get into, and we'll probably talk about in future videos and whatnot. But there's so many different other things out there in terms of your circle, your family, your girlfriend, your guy friends, and things you're doing in life. So just be aware of who you're surrounding yourself with, and like you said, 5 friends, 10 friends, whatever amount of friends you have, however big or small your circle is. Just make sure the people you ride with are people that are willing to ride with you. You know what I mean?
Because, you know, if your 5 best friends right now, all are not gym people, and then you're trying to get fit and lose weight, how successful do you think you're really going to be if you're always hanging out with people that are always like, oh, pizza's in the living room, bro?
Yeah, probably not that very successful.
Nah.
Yeah, if you surround yourself with clowns, you become part of the circus. And that's another thing, like, especially for young guys, definitely surround yourself with people that are doing better than you. Even if you're old, honestly, too. Like, honestly, people in your circle should be at your level, if not better. And if they're not, then you got to find more people to include in your circle. And if you're the leader, lead people in your circle to be at your level or be better than you. Like, there's nothing more that I wish for my friends, for my family, for anybody to do above and beyond what I do. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if you feel that way about certain people. Like, there's certain people you are included in that set of people. Like, I want them to do better than me. I want them to be better than me, because
I want them to be more successful.
If they're better than me, that means that I will be there too. Because if I'm surrounded by people that are better than me and they surpass what I'm doing in life, that means that it's going to motivate me and I can learn from them as well. You know, everyone's path is different. Some people might accelerate quicker than others. And if you have a good circle and if you have good people around you, everybody will bring each other up. So
completely agree.
100%. Hey, thank you guys for watching this video. We hope you have a great New Year. Happy New Year's, guys. And take care. We'll talk to you guys soon. It's been another Buff Talk. Chris Vidal,
Thank you for
Old
having
School
me.
Matt. Always. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you guys for checking out this video. Make sure to go check out all of our other podcasts, Buffalo Barbecues, our Buffalo workouts, and also a slew of other things, including challenges and whatnot. So make sure to check out all of these different things. Thank you guys for watching. I am Old School Matt here, and this is Water Buffalo TM. Peace.